all of it, or indeed most of it. So I was going to talk about 21st century Quaker response to sustainability or the issues around climate change. Except then I'm going to drop back to the 18th century. Because friends have been worrying about sustainability long before the impact of climate change became the thing it is now. And I like to quote from, as do many others, I like to quote from the writings of John Woolman in 1772. You probably know of John Woolman, but he was the archetypal grumpy American Quaker. best known for his opposition to slavery, at a time when Friends, amongst others, transported, traded, and used slaves on their farms and plantations, thinking this was a reasonable thing to do, for them and for their neighbours. He didn't think this, and he wrote, get this right, "The produce of the earth is a gift from our gracious Creator to the inhabitants, and to impoverish the earth now to support outward greatness appears to be an injury to the succeeding age." And so this is a link to our testimony to simplicity, it seems to me. But he's also talking about our responsibility in terms of stewardship to generations to come. Okay, enough of the 18th century. 21st century, calls to action. Great concern about the management of the resources of the earth and the lives of all living things has resulted in many calls to action by Friends since the 18th century about our needs to care in exercising our stewardship. But the fact the one that I came across this because when the first meeting I went to in Wandsworth, there was a professor of ecology. And he was very concerned, and friends there were less concerned about the impact of excessive consumption on the earth. At that time, of course, we called it global warming, but nevertheless. I remember he tried to persuade the meeting to change the light bulbs to long life bulbs, no wattage ones. He wasn't successful. But things have developed since beyond that, and I want to talk first about the Canterbury Commitment. Canterbury Commitment? Right. Let's see. Yearly meeting in 2011 was at the University of Kent in Canterbury. And the minute 36 of the meeting, which is also known by its subtitle, Our Canterbury Commitment, or just the Canterbury Commitment, was a corporate commitment to becoming a low-carbon, sustainable community. I'll quote it in a minute now. A commitment that arises from a recognition that our behaviour impoverishes the earth and squanders the earth's resources. Okay, and this was a big thing in Canterbury that year. Yearly meeting agreed that taking action on climate issues is a shared responsibility. The whole Quaker community, as individuals, as local communities, as well as a corporate body of faith, was encouraged to take action. The commitment makes it clear that this is a spiritual task, one that Quakers are called to undertake together. The secular world might call it a moral commitment, but Quakers being Quakers regard this as a spiritual one. It goes on, our actions in the world contribute to spiritual growth and community, and in turn our spiritual growth and our community strengthen and deepen our actions in the world. This goes back to early Friends who live in the world rather than out of it. And just to run the issue home, the Sophomore lecture that year was this one, Costing Not Less Than Everything, by Pam Lum, subtitled Sustainability and Spirituality in Challenging Times. It's actually quite a nice read, and I do recommend it. And I've got, if you're interested, I've got the audio of the actual lecture, if you want to hear that. So there are a couple of copies of this in the library. This is my personal one I must have bought at the time. So obviously she expands the issues, the concern, and includes a lot of resources, which I can direct you to in the book. And there's a study and reflection guide. It's highly recommended. And as I said, there are 2 copies in the library. I checked this morning. There's a section on Swarthmore lectures from there. So that's Britain in a meeting. Friends in Britain committing themselves to becoming a low carbon, sustainable community. A call to action. The other one I want to talk about, one that I've mentioned, is the Kabarak call, which I wasn't aware of particularly at the time, because this came from a conference in Kenya in 2012, so the year later. Kabarak, I think, is a small community just outside Nairobi, where Friends World Committee for Consultation, FWCC, not whatever it is, cricket club. I can tell you, I enjoyed that. Anyway, they issued the Kabarak Call for Peace and Eco-Justice. I haven't actually found the whole text of this. I'm sure it's on FWCC's site. So. From that, extract from that, we are called to see what love can do, to love our neighbour as ourselves, to aid the widow and orphan, to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, to appeal to consciences and bind the wounds. This is much more biblically aware, shall we say, than the Canterbury Commitment. It goes on a bit, I'll skip over. We are called to be patterns and examples in a 21st century campaign for peace and eco-justice, as difficult and decisive as the 18th and 19th century drive to abolish slavery. The difference being, of course, when Friends got involved in slavery campaigns, they could point to others. They are slave owners, they are slave transporters, ignoring the fact that some Friends did get involved in the trade. But this campaign for peace and eco-justice involves all of us, because we're all guilty to some extent of creating and sustaining this problem. So, what's intended to be a pun. Eco-justice is the term used by Friends in the Kabarak call. British Friends tend to use the term climate justice, and I personally prefer climate justice. It's familiar to me. Quakers want justice for those affected by climate change. The poorest in society are often the hardest hit by shifts in the climate. Globally, they have less access to affordable energy. Led by our belief in equality, testimony, Quakers in Britain campaign for everyone to have access to affordable energy that does not harm the planet. They call for climate justice. So I seem to have interpolated a bit about Britain in meeting into the FWCC text. But I'm moving on to, in recent years, climate groups in the UK have shifted from using the language of sustainability or net zero to climate justice. This is more than a change in terminology. It's a recognition that climate action is not just about reducing climate emissions. To address the root causes of climate change, climate action must address systemic injustices and inequity that form the foundation of climate breakdown. Okay, that's lovely. So we've got 2 calls to action, amongst, I think you can find hundreds of others, if you looked even cursorily across the internet. So, in more detail, what do these calls to action ask of us? As George Fox didn't actually say, what canst thou do? Right, so, Britain in a meeting. Action. So I've already referenced costing not less than everything. which has a lot more detailed guidance on what the problem is and what we can do about it, what actions we can take. And as I say, there is a lot more resources in terms of references to books, publications, and public websites, although being, we now, 2011, being 14 years out of date, the websites have probably changed. But nevertheless, and there's a study of the Faction Guide. It's highly recommended. Yearly meeting, particularly QPSW, which is Quaker Peace and Social Witness, has produced a number of booklets on, what do they call it, the new economy. As part of their Taking Action for Climate Justice, there's quite a nice booklet called Taking Action for Climate Justice. Still available on the website. And it talks about taking action in various ways, about learning about the problems via discussion groups, workshops, meetings for learning even, lobbying, political representatives. When my son George worked for QCEA a few years back, that was his job. He was basically an intern for 18 months or so at QCEA in Brussels, Quaker Council for European Affairs. And he developed lobbying the Parliament and the Commission on the circular economy, for example. Researched the topic. He delivered research papers to interested and uninterested members of the Parliament and Commission. And said, basically, this is the Quaker view, this is what we think you should be doing. We want you to translate this into some sort of action. But you can, writing to your MP is a political representative, and a lobbying activity is useful. Writing to the media, writing letters to the local paper. I know we do it occasionally. I've seen it done. Friends pop up, not just in the Friends, but in the local paper. Raising money, holding vigils, trying to affect public opinion and political opinion. And because this was a theme developing later in the 2010s, connecting with other like-minded groups, both secular and religious. An example they give, QPSW give, is Extinction Rebellion, which was quite prominent at that time. What happened to Extinction Rebellion?
Still going.
Still going.
They're not quite so.
Well, you've got Just Stop Oil.
Yes, is that part of them?
No, but they've kind of become more prominent.
They have, yeah.
They're a bit more radical actually than Extinction Rebellion in some ways, in their actions, more direct, let's say. And then you've also got Insulate Britain, which is quite a powerful group as well. So I think they took a couple of aspects and ran with it, kind of coming out from.
Yes, the sort of drift of the more radical elements.
Well, also I think of different focuses.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that came out of the, I've forgotten the name of it, but when there was the Occupy movement, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. That sort of side, Occupy around St Paul's Cathedral, and then it was extended and then trying to stop the city and stopping with those huge demonstrations in Oxford Street and things like that, wasn't it? They were huge. And boats in there and things like that. They were very powerful. But also there's a Quaker group. Is it called Quaker Roots? Is that the, or there's a Quaker offshoot of Extinction Rebellion? Yeah, I'll see if I can.
Yes, but generally we're encouraged to. We recognise that we're a small organisation. We have a lot of concerns that we had to work with others. Extinction Rebellion was high profile at the time. I think there are probably others now that we can ally with. But it's a principle.
Sorry, again, yes, this Quaker Roots, previously Roots of Resistance.
Rings a bell, yes.
Refusal to fight with weapons. We're not passive and threatened by the greedy, the cruel, and the current unjust rule of struggle to remove the causes of impasse and confrontation by the means of non-violent resistance available. So it's not It's the arms trade as well as,
Yeah.
but they're quite an active group. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, so that's pretty new meeting, but outside, beyond Friends, although including Friends, there is an offshoot. There's a body called Eco Church, which has links to churches together in England, I think. And I'm quoting from the website. It's a learning community of churches of all shapes and sizes, open to all denominations. It provides a framework to support your church and its leadership to take practical action on caring for God's earth through Eco Church Survey. And there are 5 key areas of church life: worship and teaching, buildings and energy, land and nature, community and global engagement, lifestyle. I've recognised all of those. And the survey, it says, will guide you and help you to access your progress towards a bronze, silver or gold Eco Church Award. You get a star. It's a non-competitive thing. It should be non-competitive. It's a framework for action. If you do these things, then this is the sort of things you should be doing. It's guiding you along a path to becoming more sustainable as a community, as a church or a meeting. And some friends are involved in this, some meetings are involved in this. The best one I could find was Cotterbridge meeting in Birmingham, which has actually achieved a gold award in the UK Church. And there's quite a lot of good stuff on their website, cotteridgequakers.org. But it took them 14 years to achieve, from the start of the project to achieving the gold award, where they've got quite a lot of things better. So it wasn't a quick fix.
Sounds very Quaker. Sounds very Quaker.
Yeah, we've been
Well,
5 years now.
Yeah, it's a question of resources, isn't it? And energy. You can't do everything. There isn't a quick fix for improving the sustainability of your meeting house. I think this indicates that. Brighton meeting has got to silver award status. Unfortunately, there's nothing on their website, which is a little bit out of date anyway. So I'm not quite sure what they've done, what they still to do. My old meeting, Lewis, local meeting, is registered with Eco Church, but they haven't even got to bronze status yet because they've been focusing on their development. Although that's possibly a little unfair, because when they were doing their development, one of the key strategic aims was to improve the sustainability of the meeting house, along with accessibility. And there was something else, I've forgotten what that is. For example, the development used natural materials as far as possible, locally sourced materials as far as possible. They incorporated a tunnel over insulation on blocks, in the design of the extension, in the gap between the flat and the children's room, the meeting room below it. So I still call it the children's room, but it's the small meeting room now, I think. And they employed an architect who was a specialist in environmental work on heritage buildings, which is quite a specialised little area. But they haven't actually gone back to their original work about where they are in terms of sustainability, to measure it and then to have an action plan that takes them forward to get a bronze or silver or gold star. And then of course they put in 1 or 2 air source heat pumps. They removed a gas boiler, for example. There is an area meeting sustainability group which did some work on establishing a baseline for meetings, for local meetings. I think this meeting may have filled in the forms some years ago. This was a direct response to Amendment 6 to the Canterbury Commitment. But it's gone quiet. I've talked to a couple of members and yeah, it's gone quiet. They're not doing anything at the moment, which is a shame. Maybe we need to think about that. There's another resource I came across later in the day. Bristol Area Meeting has produced a short booklet entitled Sustainability, Advices and Queries. It's quite lovely. I'm very quite impressed. I'll print it out. So it's written in terms, it's written like a pastiche of advices and queries. And sometimes it quotes directly from advices and queries. And it talks about individual responses. Are you familiar with the demands and challenges this declaration, the Canterbury Commitment, could bring to how you witness your faith? It talks about our worshipping community, individuals, meetings, considering how we live. We are all subject to all the persuasive powers of commerce and are influenced by family, friends and neighbours. Take time to understand yourself, your real needs and your true potential. Go and see a Greenpeace film.
On to the next Friends of the Earth meeting in
Yes.
Eastbourne.
And it talks about local, national and international issues. And there's only 36 advices and queries, as opposed to 42 in the real book. It's online, useful stuff, it's useful as it presents the issues and recommendations in Quaker language. I'm quite impressed. And that really is all I'm going to say. Where have I got? Right, so I'll end up with the real advice and queries. Advice and queries 41. Try to live simply. A simple lifestyle freely chosen is a source of strength. 42. We do not own the world, and its riches are not ours to dispose of at will. Show a loving consideration for all creatures, and seek to maintain the beauty and variety of the world. Work to ensure that our increasing power over nature is used responsibly with reference for life. Rejoice in the splendour of God's continuing creation. Thank you.
May I just add something?
Yes.
This is
No,
quite
sorry,
interesting
no defence.
because talking about Quakers that own slaves. There's an interesting piece on the Quaker support for climate justice WhatsApp group, which is really interesting actually. But just, dear friends, according to its 2023 annual report, the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust has 275 million GBP in its assets are invested in 3 global equity management firms who receive 3 million GBP per year for those services. In 2022, they lost JRCT, I don't know what that means, 70 million GPT. The market goes up and down. I assume their fees remain constant. The trust has supposedly divested from fossil fuels, but how have they invested? Only in climate positive assets like renewable energy, social sustainable housing, battery storage, etc., or so-called climate neutral industries, and equities such as chemical companies, ? I wonder if equity investing is in line with Friends' principles of no gambling, no speculation, in line with our testimony of stewardship, for which we own, not just personally, but corporately. If we look across the ocean to the Friends Fiduciary Corporation, a fund that manages the combined wealth of predominantly US Quaker meetings and organisations, it currently stands at $950 million US. 70% of that fund is invested in pretty harmful, not helping industries like big tech, Apple, etc. Only 6% is in the Quaker Climate Impact Sub-Fund, which has literally no impact, and is losing money and invests mainly in Schneider Electric stocks. All funds are administered by third-party equity companies who are getting substantial annual fees. So, and goes on. So it's really the question of where is Quaker money really invested? And, are we a bit blind to that. And so, yes, we need to lobby our MPs, we need to lobby certainly. But how about maybe looking at where Quaker money is and lobbying for that?
Certainly the questions are, there are questions about what we can do ourselves as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
There's the question about what we can do as a local meeting, and that local meeting, whether it needs to focus on its local environment and its local politicians and systems, or whether it wants to get involved in something wider, which is international or global. And I think presumably those recommendations would fit into those sorts of camps, individual, local and international.
I'd like to give Jane a little plug for Friends of the Earth. I feel there are lots of little groups that seem to almost be competitive in a way. Within Eastbourne, that people just we can't be bothered to go to that one or that one. You've got plastic-free Eastbourne, Friends of the Earth. I really would urge the men to consider coming to Friends of the Earth. I actually backed out because it was just a group of about 10 women all sitting around having a nice womanly chit-chat. And so I left the meeting. That was where I was at the time, but it would be nice if men would consider what Friends of the Earth does. It's a very powerful organisation.
Mostly because there's a lot of women in it.
Yeah. It must be good.
So I thought you might be interested to hear what locally we thought we were doing about this subject in 2023, because area meeting reports to British Yearly meeting on a whole range of topics, and we were asked in 2023 to say what we were doing about the carbon footprint and environmental considerations. So there's a short paragraph that was written by our area meeting clerk. In 2023, with one exception, area meetings in session were held in places where there was easy access to a railway station, or they were held on Zoom. Local meetings with meeting houses continue to find ways of reducing their carbon footprint by using fair trade for refreshments and the use of ecological cleaning products. Some local meetings are utilising guidance from the Quaker Eco Church and applying this to their meetings. Individually, Friends continue to adjust their own lifestyles to live in a more sustainable manner. And during 2023, the Sustainable Living Forum, sponsored by Rye local meeting, held 5 meetings at Tinning Green Community Centre in Rye, exploring issues of climate change, protests, the vital nature of sustainability, as well as other environmental concerns. And one of our AM Sustainability Group, who also organise the SLFs, I'm sure what that is, won the Climate Champions Power List Award for 2023 for a sustainable building project. Could this have been Lewis?
The only major building project we've undertaken in the last.
So that was what area meetings considered was what we were going to tell the British Yearly meeting we were doing in 2023. In 2024, the question wasn't on the form.
I want to talk a bit about where area meetings money is. We're doing some work. James quite right. We've taken a sort of a negative attitude. We're not going to invest in the usual things, armament manufacturers, pornography, drugs, alcohol, and now fossil fuel extraction. But we don't actually direct our investments towards, or we didn't at this time, towards positive action, positive change.
No, still don't. Yeah.
Is that still the case, Trish? We haven't.
We're talking about area meetings.
Yes, it's all about trustees, reserves policy, I think.
So I don't think that that's an issue. Since I've been clerk to trustees, I don't think that's an issue that we have specifically honed in on and looked at and used. I think it aligns much to the same as Bernard Barron sort of policy, is that we wouldn't, we're careful where we would invest, but sometimes the investments are in clusters of investments and we're not sure what's in there. Very difficult.
I would just like to observe if John knows if Quakers have ever defined sustainability. And the difficulty, and I'm noticing this all around the world now, is that when people do things, they expend something. Invariably, if you give a party for somebody,
the celery sticks are gone at the end of the pipe. And this warrants much more close inspection. I think it was originally thought of as a task that people would set their minds to, and that some wicked people were not setting their minds to. But it's much more complicated than that. Much more complicated. I know, for instance, in Bangladesh is the end of the supply chain, and the people are supposed to be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper there. And I'm sure the early Quakers thought of slaves as a resource. And they said, and are they sustainable? Of course they're sustainable. There are millions of them in Africa. They're like coal in the north of England, and people still think that way. And I know, for instance, one of my universities in America wanted to help the poor in Bangladesh, and they thought, what did they do? Well, a lot of them are garment workers, and are they poor? Yes, they're very poor, and they work all day and often all night. And what do we do for them? Well, we could educate them, and we could educate their children so their children have better jobs. And they put money into a huge new university in Bangladesh, and it's being sustained by a donation from the Brenningmeier family, who owns CNA, which is the biggest German department store. Mm-hmm. And their wealth comes from the Nazi confiscations, from the Holocaust. And they got away with it to Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have this same problem as the early Quakers. We have to really think about this from the ground up again. What's sustainability in a world where you really did care about everybody? And that's never happened before in the world. The whole world is based on a system of getting something where you can get it cheap and selling it expensively yourself. Mm-hmm. It's not moral. It never was moral. And if we would like to make it moral, we have to do some really, really hard thinking. And all our normal signposts, guideposts, and indications are ineffective, unhelpful. It really means thinking of things from the ground up. And it interests me that the Quakers, you would think if you were having a conference about sustainability, you would at first define sustainability. What does that mean? Because in all human activity, nothing is sustainable to a certain degree. Everything you use up as you do it.
I'd like to touch on what Paul was saying about what do we do on a home level, even the beautiful ministry that Edna gave. And I'm sitting here thinking, what can I do? And I know for a fact, I'm thinking of this morning, I was emptying another bowl full of water. We've got a dishwasher, and I'd probably empty about 20 at least bowls of water down the sink every day. And I don't need to. I really do not need to. These little things I see as sustainability at grassroots level. Because really, what do we do? We sit around talking. And I know I've been coming here for 20 years when we've been talking about getting rid of that piano. And I'm still here. What do we do? What do I do? Because I can't keep making judgments about where the Quakers put the money and where am I putting money? I'm certainly not putting it into McDonald's.
The oldest bank in Italy that invented double entry bookkeeping is the Monte dei Paschi. And they told the church in that period that they could make legitimate interest for the money that people put in the bank. And the way they came out with is they would own a sheepfold. That's why it's called the Monte dei Paschi, the sheep mountain. Because you could buy 2 sheep and get more sheep out of it. So it was sustainable. And for farmers and people like that is the original meaning of sustainability. And but I don't. We're coming up with a very big problem about what sustainability is in a technological society when you want technological advance. People are not going to give up their computers. And on the other hand, they're saying, how can we do this sustainably? But every time you do anything, you're using something up. So what would sustainable mean in that case? I would like to ask the friends. And when we start thinking about what sustainability would be, then maybe we can start doing it.
can I just say that the idea of a carbon footprint came from the oil companies who got together and thought, and it was like, how do we shift the emphasis from what we're doing and make everybody responsible for their own carbon footprint? And I think we need to remember, although we are responsible for ourselves, the real problem is from the big corporations and from the oil companies. Right? Those I feel need to be more of a focus, although obviously we need to take our own responsibilities and it needs to come from grassroots upwards. But also I think we need to be aware that this whole concept of carbon footprint came from corporations in order to shift the emphasis from them.
There's so many things that are masked as other things as well. For instance, when you go to Primark, you're buying clothes that are made out of oil. They're made out of synthetic fibers that are made from oil. And so there is no, everybody's guilty. There's no unguilty party. Right? There's the people doing the manufacturing, there's the people buying, but people live on the basis of these industries. You know, there are people employed at Primark. It's a huge edifice, and everybody's involved. Everybody's complicit. And if we want to talk about real sustainability, we have to think what we would mean by real sustainability. There's a gentleman now in Romania trying to keep the virgin Romanian forest. It's the most virgin forest in Europe. But how to do it is, maybe it is what those Quakers were talking about, that were talking about simplicity, just using less, living simpler. But that's been carried to extreme by people, you know, like Francis of Assisi would have nothing, you know, and he even had to take his clothes off when he died, and they just laid him on the ground to die. But I don't know. I don't think we're thinking productively about this. I think we're thinking emotionally about it. People are upset about it. It is upsetting, but they're not making it better.
That raises the question: what can we do as a meeting? And it seems as though we have two levels. We have our own personal attitude to what we purchase, whether we do recycling, whether we avoid Primark, whether we boycott things. But also, I take your point about the definition of sustainability, which is bigger than what our meeting can do. But it's the sort of thing we could, I don't know, write to Britain Yearly Meeting. But even then, it's such a big topic that I don't know how we then proceed from that, because it seems as though everything has to start at the small, the individual level, rather than we'd like to see a systemic change, but I don't think that's likely within a capitalist, for want of a better word.
Yeah, people have tried, like in Sweden, for instance, in the 18th century, they were poor for a while, and the king said, okay, we'll have different uniforms for the different social classes, and we'll wear just that. The aristocrats will wear the aristocrats' uniform, the farm workers will wear the farm workers' uniform, and we'll have one outfit, and you'll get an extra change for clothes. And I guess they probably got through a lot less clothes those years.
But if we as a meeting were to say, well, we've taken some small actions, like we've changed our banking, because we're trying to get a more ethical approach to how we use our bank. But I know, I've been saying this for ages, that even if I was to take the Franciscan model, get rid of everything I own, and went and lived in a tent somewhere, it wouldn't make a jot of difference to the overall situation. It might appease my conscience and make me very cold.
It would a little bit,
but it would. But I think that's the point. It's almost, because at times I get very disheartened by it, thinking, what's the point of me putting out the recycling when there's a coal fire station going on somewhere? What's the point of me? What's the point? It can get very disheartening, and I think it's important that we try and overcome that level and think, well, at least we can do something. And
I was wondering if even friends, if friends started thinking about genuinely sharing wealth around the world, in a big way, almost like a tax that would be levied for the world, and everybody would get an equal share. We have the equipment with computers to even calculate those kind of things. Now, I don't think everybody's definitely not at the stage of wanting that, but on the other hand, you might find more and more people voting with their feet to do it also.
But we know, don't we, that we only have the standard of living that we have because we're standing on the backs of the poor.
And the slaves.
And the slaves,
Yeah,
but
because a lot of the
the
wealth-
food pattern has come like the round tree plantation.
Yeah, slavery is just a matter of degree. You know, we have plenty of people working in factories that are like slaves. You know, they work all the hours. In America, we have guys working three jobs at a time, and they can't even afford a decent hospital.
That happens here too.
Yeah.
High-rises are full of slaves.
And if I make a statement, I believe personally it's from inside out, not outside in. When we change within and our action, the outside change as well, and we are more powerful when we do that, and then we are very light. And if you start thinking everything happened out is horrible, you became in a power where we became powerless and less miserable. It's starting within. And whatever I can do without feeling guilty or suffering, every little bit, and awareness, and claim my own power without giving it away. If no people do that, things externally change because it has to.
It's like music, you know, like if Paul McCartney sings "She Loves You," yeah. Other people say,
Yeah, my bad.
I love somebody too. I like that.
But also it's, I mean, I think absolutely. And then it's joining.
Yeah, exactly,
others
because
and-
when you do it, then you join in it, and it is growing. And it has started many ways. And maybe the news and everything not talk about the good things people doing. And it's not very saleable news. It's more in a
Do you think we could do it in concert in a better way than we do now?
Talking about locally,
Yeah.
all the different sustainability and environmental groups in Eastbourne, of which there are many actually, came together 4 years ago, just before COVID, and put all their resources together and looked at the issues and sort of divided the issues up so that different people who felt drawn to that particular aspect could take it and sort of run with it. And that's been happening in Eastbourne, so around food. One of the ones I was involved with, which came out actually out of Friends of the Earth, was Treeborn. And Treeborn had done incredible work in Eastbourne. So the idea was to plant a tree for every man, woman, child in Eastbourne. So 200,000 of them. They are well on their way to actually reaching that, which is incredible. And some amazing people came forward in terms of funding. You know, they really raised money. They've just recently done a huge project at Ratton School, thousands of trees they've planted there. And they're sort of actually running out now of spaces we can plant trees in, so they're turning their mind to meadows and planting meadows now. So, you know, it's that thing of, yes, I think the emotion is very, very important actually. For me, that spurs me to action. And then joining with other people gives me encouragement and community and allows things to actually really happen. You know, Treeborn have 200 volunteers that they can call on at any one time for a project.
Can I just ask, is there still a way of combining all these organisations? Because it feels like it's a shame there are so many.
Yeah.
I don't know, but to unite them.
It's called government.
Well, yeah.
There always seems that I think
So look at
a
that.
kind of complexity
Really?
often.
Well,
Yeah,
I haven't
I'm
come
not
across.
mentioning it.
Yeah, I haven't come across a competitive thing. I find
Well, then why are they separate?
there's a lot more cooperation now. I think
Yeah.
that there are different aspects that people are looking at. You can't look at all the aspects at the same time, otherwise, well, my head would explode personally. So people do take different focuses, but actually there's a really good network. We do kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
So all these organisations were brought together,
Yes.
but there's no overarching group, there's no coordination. You came
No.
together, decided what to do, and everyone